You're watching Zoo Tours, the channel that takes you on a virtual field trip to the zoo. Today on Zoo Tours, we are making the return to Zoo Knoxville, a zoo that, I'll admit, didn't quite leave the best impression on me. But my second go around 4 years later, and I could see that some things have improved. They already did have the Asian Trek, so far my favorite place to connect with tigers. And though I never got footage, they got rid of a bunch of random or out-of-place habitats. I hear that they're about to send their elephants to a much better home. And of course, they added the Ark. It only took $18 million, but the Amphibian and Reptile Conservation Campus opened to all in 2021. Over 70 species on display. Several educational, interactive stations that are fun for all ages. There's multiple rooms, multiple environments, and based on the route that we'll take, there's even multiple buildings. So it truly feels like, well, a campus. Most reptile houses can be repetitive, but I promise that this one will not put you to sleep. Before we begin, I want to know, what is your all-time favorite interactive station or kiosk at a zoo? This tour will actually start exactly where we left off, at the Red Panda Village, because it's never a bad time to remind you that with 110 births as of 2021, Zoo Knoxville claims that more red pandas have been born here than any other zoo in the world. Now the new developments are to their right, well technically left. The first edition starts with the high ground, and the stream that starts there drops into a second enclosure, a sandy beach. It has plenty of grass, and that stream continues down into a deep 17,000-gallon pool. The perfect formula for a good river otter habitat. Except they didn't get the memo that this wasn't a snoozer. And when they were up, it's like they didn't know where to go. It's very uncharacteristic for a group of otters, but at least I got this photo. As for the actual Ark, you're introduced to the feeling and the sounds of the tropics in the Conservatory, with sounds of streams, crickets, frogs, and just kidding, it's just a bunch of screaming children. But hey, that just means they're excited to see reptiles. The very first ones that were causing all the commotion was a very friendly black pond turtle, the unusual looking fly river turtle. And where I expected to see a giant crocodilian, I met a giant Malaysian turtle. Not that I'm complaining. This was my first encounter with one of the world's largest freshwater turtles, boasting a length of 2.5 feet long and having that scale hit 110 pounds. The conservatory's centerpiece is this tree. Now I know how fascinating fake trees can be. It's no tree of life, but 1, you don't see too many like these in a reptile house. 2, you have to pay attention and make sure that you look up, because part of it is home to a Lin's two-toed sloth, which, well, what did you expect them to be doing? If you were expecting to already see a crocodilian too, you wouldn't have to wait long. But they're not exactly giant. The dwarf crocodile. It may not always seem like there's a lot of life behind those eyes, but they are actually nocturnal and hunt mostly at night for fish, snakes, lizards, and small mammals. By the third stop, I finally got what I expected, ranging 7 to 10 feet long. The Cuban crocodile. The most terrestrial crocodilian is also known as one of the most aggressive. So if getting face to face with nearly 70 sharp teeth wasn't intimidating enough, Zoo Knoxville built a special feature I could just barely squeeze into. There's underwater views, and then there are under the water views, giving you a different perspective of the species, and also figuratively a different perspective of the Ark itself. After one more look at the turtles, and we are in the Venomous Hall. Starting from the left side are 2 smaller boxes, one with a ridged-nosed rattlesnake, and a banded rattlesnake on top, also known by some as the mint chocolate chip rattlesnake. Just Google it and you'll see why. The next two kind of look like I just bumped up the saturation on a rhinoceros viper, but these are Ethiopian pit vipers. According to the zoo, which has successfully bred them, it isn't really known if they're a rare species or if it's just they're that good at hiding. Regardless, it kind of explains why this viper is classified as endangered. Speaking of hiding, the guests were really struggling to find the Mangshan pit viper. Ironic, since they can grow up to 7 feet long, making them one of the world's largest vipers. One of the smallest, another viper, the puff adder, is also one of the slowest moving snakes, but is argued as the fastest striking snake in the world as well. Nearby is another snake that's not necessarily known to show mercy, which is the red spitting cobra. And if you see a display that's set up like an ancient temple, big chance that there's a king cobra in there somewhere. You know what most good reptile houses are missing? A good interactive station. Here you can get an enlarged look at a snake's skull, see what's under a snake's skin, and see what some snakes see. And just so you don't look like an idiot like I did, the feed does have a bit of a delay. Those were cool and all, but the gallery's crowd pleaser was this walk-in 360-degree tank. So it looks like you're in the water with a lot of Lake Titicaca frogs. A frog that seems to be everywhere I go these days. Maybe their rise in popularity has to do with those mesmerizing eyes, or it has to do with their determination. Or maybe it has to do with the fact that locals consume the frog for unfounded medicinal purposes, which is one reason why they're endangered, and so I guess more zoos are doing something about it. This gallery's most ignored section, the back corner, also had a few surprises. New to the channel, the New Caledonian giant gecko, endemic to an island 750 miles east of Australia. At 14 inches long from snout to that stubby tail, you're looking at the world's largest living gecko species. Here the zoo lets you look into the biosecure room. The sign reads that this room is part of the critical commitment to their mission of saving wildlife, where they raise zoo-born or confiscated animals and prepare them for release into the wild. To protect them from disease, this room is completely sealed off and even has a separate entrance with a shower so the keepers can wash away any pathogens before entering. This next lizard really lived up to its name, the Solomon Islands skink, also known as the monkey-tailed skink, though I guess it would make sense if they were hanging by their tail. Every reptile, herptile house, whatever you want to call it, has their, let's call them mega snakes. We've seen reticulated pythons plenty of times. I even got to see what was the world's longest living snake at the time, but this is the first time that I've actually gotten a sense of fear from one of them. I mean, getting over 20 feet long would scare anyone, but I think here it's because this is the first exhibit I've seen that allowed the python to fully elevate itself over visitors' eye lines. These types of attractions have giant snakes and also usually have something desert themed. And here is a mix of Baja Blue Rock lizards, Gila monsters, and San Esteban Island Chuckwalla lizards. To close off this wall is the semi-aquatic crocodile lizard. Alright, so if you walked in and took a right, you'd either say hi or no thank you to the Bowen's python, found exclusively in the mid-mountain ranges of New Guinea. They're excellent climbers, obviously, even though they do spend most of their time on the ground. One of my other faves was the Madagascan miners or lesser chameleon. Unlike most chameleons, it's actually the female that is more colorful. No offense to the fellas, and I think you might agree, this is why I really wish they exhibited a female. Coming in for their third feature of the year, the Caecilian. Fits in this venomous gallery more than a lot of what we've seen so far. Recent studies show that they may be one of the first amphibians known to have a venomous bite. And if you care to know more, I've left several links that talk about it in the description. And our last creature of the gallery, the Fiji banded iguana. While most iguanas are found in the Americas and Madagascar, they are the only iguana found in Oceania, or you can even say the entire right side of the world. When you're done learning, I encourage you to go and create a creature, another hands-on kiosk that lets you create a virtual amphibian or reptile. You can change their shape, colors, give them a username, and watch them come alive on the projected screens. Oh, and by the way, there's more. When you walk in the Bailey greenhouse, it looks as if you're going to have to duck from free-flying birds, but it's quite the opposite. The floor is scattered with so many individual habitats. What exactly do they contain? Well, I'm not sure if these 9 turtle or tortoise shells represent everything that's exhibited here, but it's still fun to lift them up to reveal what species these shells belong to. As if one conservation lab wasn't enough, there's a second to show off the zoo's breeding efforts that saves some of our slow-moving friends. On this day, the zoo showed off their Asian forest tortoises and a lot of the critically endangered golden-headed box turtle. At first, I thought that was it, but the arc continues outside into a setup that I've really only ever seen in San Diego. Here we have an outdoor space for radiated tortoises, who were neatly filed in a single line. And it wasn't just large or medium-sized tortoises, but small tortoises that could fit into the palm of your hand are out here. For example, this holds 3 species of spider tortoises. I don't know if it was too cold out, or maybe the exhibits are just that good. But no-shows were kind of a theme around here, so I guess now would be a good time to share that Zoo Knoxville has a long track record as a leader in amphibian and reptile conservation, if you couldn't tell. A few years ago, over 10,000 radiated tortoises were found in a single home. And of all people, a Zoo Knoxville specialist traveled to Madagascar to help handle the situation. And of course, that's just one example. The Tortoise Trail isn't just home to shells, but also the Wetlands Pond, which doesn't just complete the look of the now iconic greenhouse, but I want to say that it's an invitation for all of the local wildlife to enjoy. After my 11th time through, a swarm of frogs finally emerged. One of the signs asks you to listen to the frogs. Didn't get a croak, but the silence can be filled with this frog soundboard. The Wetlands Pond actually spills under the employee-only boardwalk and makes a bend around the lily pads. And yes, I did try them out, but knowing my luck, I expected to fall, but they're pretty sturdy. It's an excuse to have some fun and to get one last view of the last of the pond behind the lily pads. The 6th outdoor exhibit contained bog turtles and spotted turtles. The 7th impressive set was for wood turtles, Blandings turtles, and painted turtles. So maybe it actually wasn't because of the cold, because the Asian forest tortoise also showed too. And after all of the other failures and no-shows, I was ecstatic to get just a shot of their eastern box turtle. But not to discourage the arc, but the no-shows did continue with the plowshare tortoises and the Aldabra giant tortoise. But at least their exhibit wasn't technically empty. Whether it's part of the actual campus, I don't know. But across from the main arc is this, which is connected to the We Play Adventure. At first it looks like just an indoor children's play area, because of this tree and for several other reasons. But it does continue our reptilian theme. That outdoor space is connected to an even more impressive habitat for Slim, a Komodo dragon that was born in Memphis and raised at the Bronx Zoo before returning to Tennessee in 2020. The We Play building also had a series of smaller terrariums, which did make it worth looking around. Over here, we have some kind of side neck turtle. And like that lazy girl Dora, I'm gonna need the audience to help me out and ID them, because I forgot to take a photo of the sign. Oh, and same goes for this huge blue pleco fish. I was able to get what I could of their black-headed python. I got a lot of their green tree monitor, because apparently they couldn't get enough of the Sony camera, but not the Panasonic. And yes, that was an ad. The last creature was also a no-show. I couldn't take a photo of the other sign, but apparently I didn't forget to take a video of this one. I know your ears and brains might hurt by now, but we are still not quite done. Just around the giant tortoise are a few animals that I probably wouldn't feature by themselves, so it's good to show them now. I saw the usual slumbering prehensile-tailed porcupine, and an appropriately quaint outdoor enclosure, combined with a well-furnished indoor quarters. I had no idea what to expect, but I'm glad I got to see a very active six-banded armadillo, who matched the energy with their white-headed marmoset roommates. A marmoset is a type of New World monkey. There are 22 of them, but these guys are endemic or only found in the forests of eastern Brazil. And I can't think of a better species to end this reptile and amphibian journey than with a small monkey. Like I said, reptile houses can be repetitive, so that's why I usually avoid them. But even without seeing it for myself, I already knew that the Ark is now one of the better herptile facilities in America. So let me know what you think and how it compares to other reptile facilities that you have seen. And as always, please stay tuned. See if you can answer this episode's trivia question. And thank you all for watching.